Hey, what's up, y'all? Happy Wednesday. I hope you're doing well. And this week we're going to find ourselves in 1 Corinthians 9. And I hope you've been with us through this journey of wreckers to checkers, this journey through 1 Corinthians, and then we're going to hit 2 Corinthians later on. And most people assume like the chapter numbers and the verses have always been there. And again, just a reminder, this is a letter. The chapters and verses were added much later. This letter is really a letter that flows from one to the next to the next. And we're going to see a lot of that today in 1 Corinthians 9. But before we jump in, I wanted to ask you a question that I'm not sure many really ask or even wrestle with. And it's simply this, that what's the point of your salvation? Why are you saved? We just had Easter a few weeks ago, and you think about the passion story of all the events leading up to the cross, the night before the cross, of what Jesus endured, the abuse and the just the pain that he had to walk through with being lashed. You think about the crown of thorns, the nails through his hands and his feet, like what Jesus endured for you and for me. I think it's easy to think about the masses, but we need to personalize that a little bit of, the fact that Jesus had you on his mind when he went to the cross to pay the price that you and I couldn't pay, right? But why? Why? I think, we could give the children's church answer, well, Jesus loves me. He wants to be with me forever. And that answer is it's not wrong, right? God does love you and God does want to be with you forever. But it's not complete. I think there's a lot more to it than just that. That it's out of that love that God has for us that means some things for our life. We treat salvation like it's a trophy or it's like a reward. What do we say when somebody gets baptized? Congratulations, like they achieved something, right? Like, yeah, it's the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life, for sure. And we have to choose to follow Jesus. But we hang our salvation on the shelf like it's a trophy. When in reality, salvation, it's actually a work order. Like, it's not just for you to sit and soak. You got some things to do. Like, there's some things that need to happen. Now, it's not because we work for our salvation. We work from our salvation because God's love is so abundant. God's love is so good. We want others to know and to experience that love because we want others to experience what we've experienced. I don't remember what old dead writer it was that wrote it, but I love this thing. It was simply, the gospel is simply one beggar telling another where to find bread, right? Like, our salvation is deeply personal, but it's not for us. It's for others around us. And that's what we're going to see in 1 Corinthians 9. We're on this journey with wreckers to checkers as we kind of go through one chapter a week. And this week, we're going to find ourselves in 9. Last week, we were in 8 in Long Beach. And really, it was the whole premise was how you love others well is how you love God. And we're going to keep that same theme here. Like last week was about not putting a stumbling block in people's way. But this time, it's really about doing what you got to do apart from sin to draw people to Jesus. Like, you can't save anybody. I can't save anybody. However, people are watching you. People are watching me. When we profess Jesus, they're watching us. And sometimes, it's another old dead guy saying, we're the only Bible that some people will ever read. What are they reading? And so I love, here's how Paul, he writes it in 1 Corinthians 9, Verse 19, it says, though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though myself I am not under the law. Grace, right? So as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law. Though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, to win those not having the law. To the weak I became weak, to win the weak. I become all things to all people, so that by all means possible I might save some. I do this for the sake of the gospel. So what you see here is a passion about reaching others. That Paul, the reality is Paul studied under Gamaliel, which was like the supremo Jewy Jew. In fact, I've heard him said, Paul is like the Jewiest Jew there has ever been, right? He was like the supremo, had the best accolades, the best piece of paper on his wall. He was the smartest, but he gave it all up to follow Jesus. And so what he's saying here is yeah, sure, you know what? I could rub elbows with the elite so that I can point them to Jesus. Or you know what? For those that are Gentiles, that are wild living, they're out in Vegas or they're up on bingers all night raging. You know what? They're getting hammered with their teammates in the hotel bar to wake up and go to the racetrack tomorrow. You know what? I can rub elbows with those guys. It's fun. That's what I love about what we get to do at INDYCAR ministry, right? Like, you don't know who you're with from 1 minute to the next. You could be standing next to Roger Penske in 1 minute, and you're standing next to a front end mechanic that's completely hungover from the night before the next minute. And you know what? We get to point people to Jesus. And so I feel like this is kind of a wake-up call of just a reminder, like you've been given this gift of salvation. Like God has opened your eyes and your heart to his wonders and his love. And it's wonderful to grab a hold of that with your life. But it's not just for you to hold, it's for you to share. Because there's going to be a day when we go into the kingdom and God's going to look at you and be like, God, Jason, man, I gave you this gift. What'd you do with it? And sure, God, it's been awesome to taste and see your goodness, but who'd you share it with? That's what's most important. And so for you guys listening, man, maybe that's your family. Maybe it's your husband or your wife. Maybe it's your kids or your parents. Maybe it's a coworker. The reality is your salvation isn't just for you. We have a work order, right? We got a job to do. There's like 4 billion people in the world that's never heard the gospel. Like, there's a lot of work to do. And it's not just somebody else's responsibility and somebody else's job across the pond. It's your job. It's my job. Like, we get to share the greatest gift with the world. And it doesn't cost anything. And so, anyway, y'all, I want to invite you, make sure you go read 1 Corinthians 9:19, and really just, I want you to really be consumed with Paul, what he's saying in that moment. That no matter who you're around, it could be a Jew, a Gentile, strong, weak, could be one of the quote unquote elite, could be a homeless guy on the street. It doesn't matter. Everyone needs the gospel. Anyway, y'all, I hope you have a great week. Hey, today is the final day of the open test, and after the checkered flag falls today, you know what's next. May is here. Make sure you stay tuned with us. Got some exciting things coming.